going on there, folks? Good morning, good afternoon to those in a later time zone. It's the Earthmaster here on this November 15th, 2022. It is Tuesday at about 11:12 a.m. Just missed the 11:11 mark. Latest quake activity shows a 0.9, very small microquake over here in California. We did see a little bit of activity ramping up along the Middle America Trench here. In those areas, also South America seeing some more movement, a little bit of activity down here south of Australia, a little bit of movement kicking up here. No further major movement around the New Zealand area. I'm still kind of watching that zone, considering all the large-scale activity north and the divergent boundary earthquakes down here along this plate boundary, the Antarctica and the Pacific plate here, over the last couple days. But for the most part, most of our activity has been pushed up against the southwestern portion here of the Philippine plate. Let's go ahead and check out some activity on this map, a little bit better view here. Notice that activity from about Taiwan all the way down through the Philippines and into the Indonesia area. A lot of this earthquake happening today, where we've seen some fours, a couple fours in there, and a bunch of other smaller quakes in this mix, as we had seen on the Earthquake 3D globe. So there's actually a lot more activity kicking up here than what's reported there on the USGS map. Mariana Trench outside of Guam seeing a little bit of activity as well just after midnight. And there's those numbers again, 333 coming in. Well, about 12:03 in the morning, my time, when I was sleeping. About 65 kilometers deep there into the Mariana Trench. I still think these quiet zones that have not really seen any major movement are in for a little earthquake activity soon. I'm just not 100% certain exactly when, but we know that there's quite a bit of stress building up here along this section of the plate. It is a major subduction zone. Areas that have been hit, obviously, are throughout the Philippines. Fiji Islands definitely has been a big one with all that activity kicking up last week, over the weekend and late last week, I should say, with only very minimal adjustment down here through New Zealand. This has got to be under quite a bit of pressure. So there's two main spots, but we really can't put out the Mariana Trench area or the Izu Trench area either, because we have seen some deeper activity last week in that zone, with only minor adjustment up along the subduction zone itself. And of course, the west coast over here hasn't really been hit. Down in the South America, of course, we had those had a 6.2, I believe it is, and a couple other smaller mid-5 range earthquakes over the past week, with no adjustment up here along the west coast. Some minor adjustment, but that's very typical along the area of the West Coast zone. So those couple areas watching pretty closely, and they still haven't got hit today, obviously. We got one earthquake into about this little bend up here in the plate. Kind of an interesting little formation in the plates out here. The Aleutian Trench and the Kuril-Kamchatka Trench zone, right about in the center point, with a 4.6 at 10 kilometers deep. Aside from that, these areas are open and I think waiting. They're definitely building up some stress there. Okay, so Fiji Islands area, what do we see so far today? Nothing at all. This activity here from yesterday, the New Zealand area here, did see, let me bring up the globe here. Is it going to let me? It's not going to let me. It's going to be a little weird, so having some issues with that one. But we can always check. Let's go to the EMSC model here real quick and see what we got. And down around New Zealand here, this is going to show us some of the smaller magnitudes, which are there is some, but there's not a lot of larger scale activity. Looks like we did have a couple fours down here earlier this morning, 4.2, and well, it looks like there's a couple 4.2s here in this area of the Kermadec Trench, and USGS doesn't look like they're showing those. You guys see that? Nothing. These earthquakes here from yesterday, so it's a little odd. Either way, there's a little activity around the New Zealand area, including one over here around the Alpine Fault. We were just kind of talking about that here last night in the update, kind of chatting about how that's very capable. The Alpine Fault is very visible here. You can see it across the land here. Makes a sharp cut throughout the South Island area, and then extends along the plate boundary up north, and then you get into the Hikurangi subduction zone. But this area right here, from what I can tell, it's capable of an 8-pointer. It's been, well, the last earthquake along this fault system of that magnitude was back in 1717. So over 300 years, and regular intervals, reoccurrence intervals, are roughly between 150 and 350 years, I believe, were the numbers. So we're definitely been sitting on that for a little while on the I was going to say Calpine, because I mentioned that word a lot there around the Clear Lake volcanic field. But the Alpine Fault along New Zealand here is definitely, well, we got one earthquake there. But let's see, that's going to be the 361 kilometer deep earthquake off the coast of the New Zealand area. So not specifically on the Alpine Fault, but kind of around it there. Pretty deep earthquake for that zone. Let's see here. So yeah, I'm kind of wondering why USGS ain't showing nothing there. Just a little odd. 4.9 showed up early this morning. Again, well south of Australia. And that's on this little fault. I shouldn't say little, because it's a major plate boundary here. And it's a little divergent boundary. What is it? Not gonna attempt that this morning. Little, not really awake. I mean, I'm awake, but a little drowsy today. Hopefully, I'm not coming down with nothing. Been feeling it in my voice a little bit. Got a north wind drying stuff out here in California, so that's not what we need. Alrighty. Indonesia area, band to sea. There's some of that movement I was discussing here, stretching across the region today. And that's kind of where our main push of movement has been. And for some reason, I cannot get that Earthquake 3D program to pop up. It's going to be one of those things again. I'm probably going to have to close that one down. So, but either way, activity bunching up here around the Java Trench and throughout the Indonesia area. Pretty good crunch of movement today. Not a whole lot of westward activity. Notice here across India and the Andaman Sea area. Not a whole lot kicking up there right now, far as 4.0 and above goes. But we are going to look at this map here. There's that cluster of quakes, including quite a few threes in the mix there. And again, nothing going on up here around the Japan northward area or the Mariana Trench. We got one earthquake. It looks like a 3.9 coming in yesterday. There's the Guam earthquake. So, excuse me. Goodness. Something in the air today out here. A lack of moisture, I think it is. South America region also seeing quite a few earthquakes in the cluster group here, in this little cluster. I do see a couple fours listed on here from today. And let's see, USGS is showing a couple of those from today. Looks like largest one, a 4.8 so far. This is in that area that's seen a 6-pointer, 6.2 down here off the coast of Chile. But I guess this newer movement we're seeing today is kind of a little bit further north around the Santiago area. So got to watch this zone pretty closely. I know we had, was it this year or last year, South America gets a lot of earthquakes, a lot of high slip rate in this area, but I know we had a 7-pointer, mid-7 up here somewhere. It may have been earlier this year. Can't quite remember. But this area, I think, is kind of primed here for some further larger activity. I can't recall the last time we've seen a large, much larger than a 6 in this area, so we'll watch that. The Caribbean plate area, very minimal as far as 2.5 and above goes. The all magnitudes map does not really give it too much more justice. Looks like a 2.9, the largest, most recent quake here. A couple other smaller quakes in the mix of the swarming across the eastern portion of the country. We did see this earthquake coming in to the Canada area outside Ottawa and Montreal area yesterday, and I did get a notification about another earthquake up here in Canada on my phone. But where was that? Somewhere up in Canada. It was like a 3-pointer. Maybe it's this one up here. Oh, that's from earlier this morning. Well, let's bring up the Earthquakes Canada map and see what we got as far as activity goes. Let's see here. Most recent earthquake here is going to be in the purple circle, a 2.7. That one coming in at 10:44 UTC time. That was a while ago. So I'm not for sure exactly where the earthquake struck. That had just came in over my phone. It said a 3.7 somewhere up here, but man, I am not seeing it. That was from earlier this morning as well. Alrighty, well, if it pops back up, it pops back up, and then we'll report on it a little bit later. But as far as earthquake activity up north of us here in the States, definitely what you see up here on the map, some red circles indicating some more recent earthquake activity. And also it looks like over here across the northern end of the, well, not quite down into the Cascadia, this is basically the North American Pacific Plate boundary here. Seen some activity kicking up in the last couple days. No major adjustment looks like there along the Cascadia for now. Let's see, and back east here we had that one earthquake listed up here on the map. Again, just outside of the Ottawa area, that was listed up here on the USGS map as well. Center portion of the country, the Southern Plains, all pretty quiet today. Only a couple small earthquakes. New Madrid zone earthquake there from looks like early this morning, a little 0.7 in this area of the country. Now the west coast here, this is a 2.5 and above. Did see some activity into Nevada in the Great Basin area, and also down here just off of the San Andreas fault system here about 8 o'clock this morning time frame. That was 2.5, 16 kilometers deep. It's a little bit of a deeper earthquake. Let me see here. That's kind of coming in off of the, looks like a section of the San Jacinto fault zone. As far as any further activity goes, nothing listed up here on the map. Overall seismic activity, somewhat minimal compared to recent past couple weeks or so. 1.0 well off the coast of the Imperial Beach area, off the border down there off San Diego coast area. Looks like a 6.4 kilometers deep for that 1-pointer. Nothing big, just a couple small quakes in that area of the state. One earthquake up here in the Sierra Nevada mountains near the Yosemite Valley area, 1.1. Long Valley, Mammoth Lakes area looks pretty quiet. Only a couple small quakes in that area today. In Northern California, Pacific Northwest area, all quiet until you get into the volcanoes up here in the state of Washington. A couple small quakes just outside of Mount Rainier and Mount St. Helens area. Let's go ahead and check the volcano status up here. By the way, 17 epicenters of tremor, not that big of a deal, along the Cascadia yesterday. Check out Mount St. Helens here. The seismograph, there's a couple of those quakes that they are reporting. Looks like to the west here, due west of Mount St. Helens, and a couple up here at the crater area as well. Let's see what we got for the recorded data. Round and round. Kind of slow today. Not for sure what's going on there. There is a couple of those earthquakes, it looks like. These are definitely earthquakes. And that looks like about the largest one so far here. No, I'm not seeing any major swarm, but there is a little bit of activity here around Mount St. Helens with these little spikes, and of course this noticeable earthquake activity. Very small, nothing major at all. In fact, the biggest one they have on here is looks like a 0.9. Let's see here. Yeah, that's about it. And some other smaller quakes listed up there. I still see these little ones, though, as earthquakes. They're very small, very microquake ones, but they're not definitely not reporting on those little bitty ones. About the same up here around Mount Rainier. A little bit of activity outside just to the west here of the Mount Rainier region. We can check that out as well. See what we got for recorded data. And we'll check this one out over here. Hopefully this one's working. Let's see here. Not for sure what this is up here. I don't believe it's anything local as far as earthquake activity goes. It could be some type of equipment turning on or off. But I don't believe that's going to be earthquake activity. Largest one so far looks like it's a, well, we can go to this morning's earthquake, 0.10957. It could be, yeah, it's probably some of these little small specks here. But these, I don't believe they're earthquakes. And there's definitely not a whole lot of these little ones showing up. Just a couple very small ones there around Mount Rainier. So no major movement across the volcanoes currently along the west coast. And the Big Island, been watching that. A little bit of activity overnight as well. Looks like into the Mauna Loa area. Most of this looks like it's at the surface levels. There's a couple down there, 2.3 at 1.9 kilometers below the surface here, the northwestern flank here. And that's what I kind of looking for in terms of magma movement. If we start to see this swarm up again and get some of these deeper quakes, that's a good sign of some magma on the move. But I think right now things are kind of just at a neutral stage there with really no major changes noted at all across the area. About the same for Pahala down on the southeast flank here. Just a couple small microquakes today. Overall 15 earthquakes on the Big Island. That's not that much. Normally we run probably about 30 to 40 on any given day. So a little bit of calmness right there. And up into Alaska, looks about the same here as yesterday. Just some general movement throughout the area. A little bit of activity here. Let me zoom in to this region. I'm going to bring these guys in as well. Some microquakes. Well, not really a microquake. 3.6, a minor earthquake down into the subduction zone here of the Pacific Plate. And getting some other earthquake activity in a linear type fashion here across the area of the subduction zone. Things might be starting to get ready to move there. We have seen some activity. Let's go last 30 days, 4.5 and above. Most of the somewhat larger activity has been over here to the west along the Aleutian Trench. Seen quite a few 4s and 5s in this area. Not a whole lot of movement here along this section of the plate. And normally we see at least a couple 4s or some 5s in this area. And that hasn't been the case over the past month. So might want to watch that zone for some possible activity, further activity, larger activity than what we've been seeing. Let's see. I think that's about it, folks. One earthquake here in the Gulf of Mexico, 4.3 coming in. That was yesterday. I don't even know if that was there on the map last night. Kind of an oddball quake. A lot of times we don't really see that stuff out there along the Gulf here. Historical data. Let's see what we got for historical data out here. Looks like further south of this region we do see some earthquake activity. But far as far as it going back to 1900 or so, there's only been maybe looks like 3 or 4 specifically within this area of 4.5 and above. So not a major seismically hazardous area. So these little earthquakes in a weird zone kind of stand out. So I'm kind of surprised I didn't catch that last night. Again, I don't know if it was listed up here on the map or not. Solar weather activity. No major events to take note of overnight. The massive sunspot. Well, let me go back over here to the massive regional group of sunspots here are departing and saying their goodbyes towards the northwestern section of the sun here. And they're huge. Definitely a massive sunspot group. But they are almost no longer facing Earth, or within view, I should say. They're definitely not facing Earth right now. Here's the visible disk of the sunspots. Pretty cool looking. We do have 3146 over here that is rotating into view, and that looks like it doesn't look like it's changed much since last night as far as the complex magnetic field. The structure of it looks a little disorganized, and not very likely that we're going to see anything popping off from that one at all. If we still see anything, like far as any major flares go, it'll be coming from this departing sunspot, or any one of those, because they all look pretty, looks a little complex there in a couple of those fields. But again, not going to be Earth directed. No major CME will be headed our way, even if it does happen. So out of luck on this round. And far as the data overnight goes, seen some C flares, but notice the downtrend here of the X-ray flux chart showing a lack of activity. No major coronal holes facing us here. Looks like this guy right here, this pretty big, massive one. I don't think we'll see anything from it, but it's something to watch pretty closely. 46, a major coronal hole right here. If it was positioned a little bit higher up on the sun, that could definitely be a game changer here when it comes to the 3-day. But I don't think we're going to see anything from that. We'll keep an eye on it for sure. And that's about it, folks. I'm going to jump off here. Current solar, real-time solar wind looks pretty calm and minimal. BT-BZ component here, pretty neutral. And that's about it. Alrighty. I got to fix this earthquake 3D program once again. Find out what's going on with it. It wants to be weird and stuff. It just doesn't want to, I don't know. It's just so weird. Everything freezes up on that program. And I've tried uninstalling it, reinstalling it. It just seems to be the culprit of my issues at times. So I'm going to work on that here, and we'll chat you guys a little bit later on this evening. Have a good Tuesday. Peace out, folks.